Hoy quisiera traerles una historia de motivación de Linda González. Ella es una colega bien interesante. El libro es autobiográfico, pero ella no se enfoca en su historia, sino en la consecuencia de la historia de sus padres. La historia es una interesantísima porque esta combinación improbable de culturas se da y como producto nace Linda González. Y no voy a entrar en mucho detalle, pero les adelanto que Linda González es de madre colombiana y padre mexicano. A eso es a lo que me refiero, una combinación bastante improbable en el momento en que se dio. Linda también ha roto esquemas de muchas maneras. Ella es activista, ella es feminista, ella fue a la universidad en los 90, donde todo el mundo estaba pendiente de lo que los demás estaban haciendo y donde muchas cosas no eran aceptadas, muchas otras eran criticadas y tantas otras eran pues barridas bajo la alfombra. Más o menos de mi generación. Me identifica con muchas de sus formas de pensar, muchas presunciones, muchas conclusiones. Platicar con Linda fue espectacular. Ahí uno se da cuenta de lo fácil o lo difícil que la ha tenido. Sin darle mucho detalle, estoy tratando de no soltar la sopa. El título del libro es The Cost of Our Lives. Cuando uno viaja a través de las páginas de The Cost of Our Lives, se da cuenta de que Linda ha podido, aquí tengo unas notitas, Linda ha podido reírse de su propia desgracia si lo hubiese evaluado de esa manera, pero ella no lo tomó de esa manera. Ella en un momento dado dice, I lost my culture, perdí mi cultura. La entrevista se da en inglés porque ella se comunica mejor en inglés y a eso es a lo que va. Un idioma no es necesariamente una cultura perdida, aunque se asocia el idioma y la cultura, a veces podría estar asociado, pero no necesariamente. Luego, en otro momento, hace una analogía al born again Christian y ella se autodenomina born again Latina, porque ella lleva su orgullo latino a flor de piel. En un momento dado ella se da la tarea de mejorar su español, aunque aún se siente más cómoda hablando en inglés. Durante el libro se van a poder identificar o se van a poder reír de temas tales como el horóscopo, la inmigración, un padre con historias ocultas que ella poco a poco va descubriendo, y cuando ella cree haberlo descubierto todo, cuando ella determina y concluye que su padre vivía una doble vida, se da cuenta que la vida no era doble sino triple o quizá múltiple. Esa se la dejo ahí. Por otro lado, habla sobre unas manchas en la piel que a ella le estaban bastante normales, era parte de su vida. Ella se aprendió a querer y aprendió a valorar su cuerpo, como ella dice, con sus cicatrices, con sus marcas de batalla, con su carácter, ¿no? Entonces, ya adulta, cuando conoce a sus hermanas mexicanas, ya se me soltó parte de la sopa. Pues entonces una de ellas se enfoca en las manchas en la piel y le dice, te voy a conseguir una cremita. Linda no parecía preocupada por sus manchas en la piel ni nada por el estilo, pero como el que busca encuentra, la hermana le buscó y encontró las manchitas. Se puede reír de eso también. Se habla, ¿verdad?, de la crema. Yo, que viví en México, la veía en los estantes por allí donde quiera. Es muy famosa por allá. No voy a mencionar la marca, no vaya a hacer que YouTube me tumbe el video por eso. Se habla de lupus, se habla del karma. En un momento dado ella va a un médico y personal médico de la oficina de ese médico le dice, pues no sé qué será lo que te pasa, no sé cuál es el diagnóstico médico, pero esto debe ser karma. Tú debes haber matado a alguien en tu otra vida. Entonces, a veces yo me pongo a pensar, si yo le cuento esto que me ha pasado a la gente va a pensar que me estoy volviendo loca. Pero gracias a Dios, a Linda también le pasan cosas insólitas, así que no estamos solas en esta vida cómica. Felizmente todo eso se resuelve con el positivismo y la ingeniosidad de Linda. No le voy a dar detalle. Ella convierte una tragedia en una comedia. Por ejemplo, hay una escena de una muerte donde usted está consternado y compungido leyendo esa escena, y cuando Linda sale con una de las suyas, pues usted dice, wow, qué manera de tergiversar una tristeza y convertirla en un chiste. Y en eso me identifiqué mucho con ella, porque el sarcasmo y la ironía son parte de mis armas secretas. Habla de Alzheimer's, habla de cáncer. La obra es vigente, es relevante y está muy al día. Fibrosis pulmonar, ahí también me identifiqué porque mis padres ambos murieron de cáncer de pulmón, no necesariamente de fibrosis, pero como los síntomas y los tratamientos son semejantes, pues ahí fuimos. Otra de los temas que Linda aborda y pues en el que abunda de una manera bien profunda es en el tema del altar del Día de Muertos. Y pues yo, que viví en México, me deleité en esas escenas, en las ofrendas, y nos cuenta sus sentimientos, su manera de pensar, el proceso de cómo llega hasta allá, de la primera vez que ella construye un altar de muertos y en qué circunstancias. Muy importante. La lección, una de las tantas, la lección que aún me retumba es amar tu cuerpo lleno de marcas de belleza. Loving your body full of beauty marks. Me impactó esa. Bueno, luego le di todas estas vueltas para traerle contexto. The cost of our lives, el costo de nuestras vidas, le lleva desde el proceso migratorio de los padres de Linda, ambos por su lado, porque ya les comenté que la madre colombiana y el padre mexicano hacen ese junte improbable y construyen una familia en California. La madre colombiana llegó de Colombia, no fue que era de ascendencia colombiana, etc. El padre mexicano llega de México, no es tampoco que el padre fuera de ascendencia mexicana y que nació en California, no. son inmigrantes, y ese proceso se da de maneras misteriosas. Todo queda al descubierto aquí, bueno, casi todo. Esa familia que ellos levantan en California es una familia normal en todos los sentidos. Tienen sus raíces latinas, se habla español e inglés. Me imagino que la familia estaba constantemente cambiando de clave. Iban a la escuela en inglés, hablaban con sus padres en español, tenían esa versatilidad familiar, ¿no? Pero en momentos dados se da la dinámica de soy de aquí o soy de allá, a dónde pertenezco, me están discriminando, estoy aceptando el discrimen o estoy decidiendo dejarme discriminar. Todo ese tipo de dinámica se da, y todo se resuelve de manera muy positiva, muy improbable, quizás muy ilusoria. Pero como el ser humano decide cuál es el camino que va a tomar, pues todo ese proceso y toda esa historia de poder manejar sus emociones, poder manejar su falta de oportunidad y llevarla a llegar a una meta exitosa, le da todas las credenciales que se necesiten para llegar a este segundo libro, que es Breaking Through Your Own Glass Ceiling. No se trata de competir con nadie, sino de competir con una misma. Es mejorarse como ser humano, de manera constante, de manera continua, y seguir mejorando cada día. No competimos con nadie, y en eso también me identifiqué, porque ¿con quién compito? Yo prefiero colaborar. Colaborando nos hacemos más fuertes. Así que este también está altamente recomendado, Breaking Through Your Own Glass Ceiling. Y sin más preámbulo, vamos directamente al mambo. Aquí les voy a mostrar la entrevista que le hice. La entrevista fue en inglés, pero confío que puedan seguirnos. Tratamos de hablar despacito y tratamos de enunciar lo mejor posible, pues con mi catanglish, ¿no? Pero confío que le va a gustar la entrevista, y confío que se van a enamorar de Linda, la mentora, la motivadora, y cómo es que ella va construyendo esa destreza de recoger limones y hacer limonada. Espero que les guste. Hello everyone, I have the pleasure of having with me Linda González, author of the award-winning The Cost of Our Lives. This book won the Mariposa Award, and it is a memoir which is touching, it's magical, it draws your attention, and it basically kidnaps you as the reader, and takes you to the setting where this is taking place. This goes from California to Mexico, LA, Berkeley, and a roller coaster of family issues and how they get resolved. Linda, I know that she's very humble, but the way I saw this, Linda was doing a lot of the dirty work, and Linda was trying to fix what her family had not done right, in her view, with her siblings from a different family. Through the story, Linda discovers her father's double life, and when she thinks she understands what went on, And when she thought she'd seen it all, life surprised her with a triple life. So I am not going to spoil any of what's here, but I guarantee you that you'll love it. You will grab it and you won't be able to put it down. Linda, overcoming all of this, like I've told her, gives her a lot of credibility to publish Breaking Through Your Own Glass Ceiling. It's not the usual self-help book, but it is a book that you apply to your own situation. It's very unique in that way. So the memoir, and having seen her solving all of her family's difficulties, gives her credibility to guide you as a life coach through breaking through your own glass ceiling as a personal journey. So Linda, how do you feel about us paying attention to both of your books as a unit and having the spotlight on you now that the Latinos are very visible? Thank you to people like you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the praise, and I don't take it lightly ever. When I wrote both of my books, I thought about what is the biggest lessons I've learned in my life and what is the best way to tell the story. So, the memoir, The Cost of Our Lives, was really on the personal level. It was what was happening in my family, what was the story that I needed to tell, and to really show the complexity of who we are as a Latino, Latinx community, apart from a lot of the stereotypes that a lot of the media has around us. So I really appreciate you seeing the connection between the two books. I absolutely see that way as well. And it is about knowing that no matter what happens to us, there is a way to flourish in spite of personal and political challenges, and to know that with perseverance, con ganas, we can find a way to make the best of whatever happens in our lives.
Correct. And si se puede, freeing the next generation from secrets from the past. Linda is trying to be a trailblazer and liberate her twins from having to deal with past secrets. And on the same level, the way I look at it, she's also liberating all other Latinos that come after her to be able to live their lives to the fullest and not allowing life circumstances to make them invisible, because we are not invisible. And one thing I notice in this book is that Linda, although may not intend to, she's very visible. She's always present, and it's very candid. It's a very candid story, and it's very honorable the way she fixes what she thinks needs fixing. What made you focus your memoir on your father's two families?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, there had always been these shadows in my life. And as I was growing up in this country with my immigrant parents, my father from Mexico and my mother from Colombia, there was so much focus on fitting in, on trying to figure out the US culture and being able to do what they couldn't do in their lives as immigrants. So that it was really only as I got older that I did a lot of racial equity work, that I was forced to look at my family from a very different lens and look at fairness, look at what I had refused to look at because I was just trying to figure out my career. I had had many challenges as a Latina who spoke out in jobs against people who were more powerful than me. And I was always struggling in many ways to find a way to have my voice. And so writing gave me that voice. It was something I had always done, even as a young person. I had always kept journals. I was a prolific letter writer. And when I began this journey, I did not think it would take me 13 years to write the book.
Yeah.
And so, I focused on the two families because for me, those were the puzzle pieces in my family that did not fit. I don't know if anybody makes puzzles, but they have to actually fit. And sometimes you want them to fit. So you kind of stick them in there, and then you realize as you're creating the whole picture, like, oh, that's not working. And so it really caused me to take the whole puzzle of my life apart and look at it piece by piece and see where did everything fit. And so when you think of it that way, 13 years was a very short period of time.
Yes, I was just going to say 13 years of X amount of years for every member of the family. I mean, that was hundreds of years right there. Your mom, your dad, your 5 siblings, 1, 2,
Yes.
3, yeah. And your nephews, nieces, your daughter, your son, your significant other. I mean, how do you manage to fit all that in 13 years? I don't know how you did it, but I mean, I applaud you for it, because it's also encouraging for a lot of us who want to live a truthful life, and we get rid of hypocrisy. We just want to be the example for others to follow. And books like this gives all of us the courage to say, oh my God, I mean, she's had it worse and she was able to overcome all that. So it is true that when you think you're underwater, you look around and there are a few that have already drowned. So, so I mean, also, as I read the book, I felt emotions. One of the episodes, because the book takes you from being very attentive, from suffering, from crying to laughing, and how Linda makes a tragedy into a comedy is incredible. There is a scene that that is going to think that there is no possible way this happened, but it did. So Linda's mother passes away, and stubborn soul she was and remained. Um, when they think that they can solve the funeral and the wake, or that they're being able to settle all that, the body is still not at the final home. And so Linda's mother's way gets in, and she stubbornly changes the plans of the family that final night she was around them in this side. So all of a sudden we see ourselves. I don't want to give away any spoilers, because you need to read this and you need to be able to be crying to then see how that curveball that comes at Linda, how Linda handles it, and the entire family. But she basically takes the lead, and they turn it into a laughable scene, because as a family, I suppose it's a lot easier when you have the support of each other. And I saw Linda working really hard. But all these to lay the ground and help our public understand that as readers, we feel what's going on. How did you deal with your feelings through the writing process? That must have been brutal.
It was pretty brutal. I think part of how I dealt with it is I always had a box of tissue nearby. And also, I always had my comadres. When I first started writing, I had a group of Latinas who were also just beginning to see themselves as writers. We would get together and write. And at the end, we would read whatever we had written and we would just clap, because at that moment, all we needed was si se puede, like you said. We had to just get the encouragement to keep going. And then as I continued to write the book, I started being with a writing group. And that also then gave me some more discipline to learn how to receive feedback. One of the hardest things as a writer was receiving feedback. Of course, this story is so personal to me, and there are so much emotions in it, that to be able to have someone say, yeah, that's great, but it really doesn't belong in the book. You know, you have to really grow up as a writer and be able to say, okay. And so a lot of it was both the emotion of writing it and digging into, I think it's, there's a great word in Spanish, escarbando, right? To like really digging in each time also meant that I had to give myself breaks. In the later parts of it, I would go away to really beautiful places for a day or two to write, because I needed that sustenance of a beautiful place and nature and quiet, because of course, as I'm writing this book, so many things are happening in my life, in my work, with my twins are growing up, you know, there's a lot happening. And so a lot of it is to give yourself the space and the solitude. So if I needed to just sob, sometimes I had the freedom and the space without worrying about that my kids would worry about why mama is doing that. So, you know, I think the comadres, creating some space for solitude to let whatever has to come up. Comadres, people who will read your work and give you really good, honest feedback. You know, I also had consultants that I worked with, and I remember there is one chapter that I got published early on in the Chicken Soup for the Latino Soul. And to see the way that the editor and it was a very sad chapter in many ways, but to see how it touched people, I think then that really gave me a lot of courage to keep going and working through the emotions. When I saw, wow, this, you know, it's hard for me, but when I see how people responded, and the healing and the understanding that it brought them, that is really a lot of what helped me to get through the emotional trauma that was very much present in the writing of the book.
Well, speaking of writing as part of the healing process, this is the perfect example. So more power to you in mentoring others. You have that extra tool that you could probably help with as people need to heal, because as we write, life is still going on and we still need to manage life. And I see, I saw Dia de Muertos, I saw lung fibrosis, I saw Alzheimer's, cancer, a wrong diagnosis of lupus, horoscopes, immigration issues, karma. I mean, there is so much going on in this book. I mean, 13 years, you were Speedy González. 13 years.
Well, you know, one of the things that really helped me was I had thought the book was done at a certain point, and I hired actually a Latina editorial consultant to read through the book. And she said, you know, this book is good, but there's a better story in it. The first time I had written it, it was much more focused on me and my transformation and journey. And not that this book, as you said, I'm in this book for sure. I'm the narrator, I'm a key character, but she's the one who turned me around and said, I think there's a better story here with your father and his secrets. I think you need to go out and interview your siblings and get more of their voice and their perspective in the book. And I did not want to do that, but I trusted her, and she said, you know, I want you to have a higher bar. I want you to really think about, you know, how to make this book the best it can be, and to, you know, to make the Latino community proud, because we don't always have that many books that we can point to. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. And that's part of, I had 3 different structures that I went through before I settled on the one that finally became the book. And so part of it is having the patience. I have that as a quote at the beginning of the book, right? Do you have the patience to wait until the mud settles? And I believe the story and what I had to share was important enough that it was worth doing well.
Well, this story hopefully gets to everyone's hands. I hope that it makes it in Spanish sometime soon. Someday, I hope to see this story translated to Spanish, maybe in a film or maybe even in a documentary. That's the quality of this text. So I applaud you for it. Thank you for all you did to bring all of these issues to our awareness, and be brave so that we can look at them as real. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I really appreciate that. I do say that the role of the writer or the artist is to take pain and to find what is beautiful in it. And that to me was the goal of this book.
Thank you.